Ladies and gentlemen and fellow Whovians and Doctor Who fans alike, Ncuti Gatwa has officially left the role of the 15th Doctor. Ncuti Gatwa was the Doctor for less than 2 years. Between his announcement to then his appearance in The Giggle was actually longer from his appearance in The Giggle to his regeneration. Ncuti Gatwa's 15th Doctor is a Doctor that has been shafted in every possible way. In today's video we're going to be taking a look back at the 15th Doctor and do a brief retrospective of his era. So this means giving brief reviews of each episode he has been in, so a few bullet points about each episode and then an overall rating, and then some critical thought towards the end. Ncuti Gatwa's first appearance as the 15th Doctor was in the episode The Giggle. Say this was a controversial start to his era would be an understatement. He was a Doctor that came from bi-generation, a very controversial concept instead of just the regular regeneration. This of course was not Ncuti Gatwa's fault. Ncuti Gatwa was energetic and was amazing from the offset. Unfortunately it wasn't his moment to shine. The 14th Doctor was still very much there, and there was still this looming threat of the Toymaker. But if I am being honest, pretty controversially, I do think The Giggle is a decent episode. I've actually got it as one of Ncuti Gatwa's top 10 episodes. I do think it is a pretty good episode. I love Neil Patrick Harris as the Toymaker, and the scenes with him are really fun. Same with the 14th Doctor's inclusion, and then when Ncuti Gatwa gets going, he's really good. Ncuti Gatwa's next appearance as the Doctor was in the Christmas special, The Church on Ruby Road, which in my opinion, although I think Millie Gibson's inclusion as Ruby Sunday here is amazing, and I love Ncuti Gatwa as the Doctor basically immediately off the offset from this episode. He really sets the tone for how his Doctor is going to be. I do think this is a weaker episode. I really don't like these goblin creatures. I really just don't think they're that threatening or scary or really interesting, and I really do not like the musical number in this episode. Overall, I think this episode is weak. I don't personally enjoy this episode. I've actually got it down in the top 5 worst Ncuti Gatwa episodes, but again, this really isn't his fault. I think he and Millie Gibson and their pairing as Ruby Sunday and the Doctor really work. Their chemistry is on fire in this episode. We're then introduced to the beginning of season 1 with 2 brand new episodes, Space Babies and The Devil's Core. I think it's an incredibly unfortunate start to the brand new Disney era of Doctor Who. This brand new era with Ncuti Gatwa, starting it with an episode where babies are talking and there is a monster made out of bogies. I really don't like this episode. Again, I think Ncuti Gatwa and Millie Gibson's performance, as you're going to see quite a bit throughout this episode, I think it was amazing. Their chemistry is on point. I really love these bits about Gallifrey, and Murray Gold really hits during these scenes, and I ultimately think that bit's a great setup, but it just doesn't really do its purpose, which is introduce all these brand new people to Doctor Who. It really kind of just falls flat. And of course we have the Devil's Cord, which ties back to The Giggle, that episode with this whole idea of gods and the Pantheon, which is overall the big overarching idea of Ncuti Gatwa's era, and this brand new Disney era is all these gods and Pantheon. And whilst I like that addition and I like that that's inclusion, the mystery behind Ruby Sunday, of course, now looking back at it, doesn't go anywhere. So we get these bits in Space Babies and this episode, and ultimately it leads nowhere. So to me, it doesn't really make any more sense. I don't like the musical number in this episode whatsoever. We get hints of Susan, which we now know has basically led to nowhere, unfortunately, and I don't really like Jinx Monsoon's betrayal. Now look, I know this will be a controversial one, me rating this low and not enjoying this episode, but if you do enjoy it, I'm so glad. I'm glad you got something out of this episode that I didn't, but I just personally think the start to this era with The Church on Ruby Road, then Space Babies and The Devil's Cord is a really weak one and a really weird one, especially with the musical number, which really didn't instill much hope or confidence in it. Then we come to the episode Boom, which is very much like a bottle episode where the Doctor is stuck on a landmine. Of course, you've probably heard about Boom already, but I absolutely adore this episode of Boom. Ncuti Gatwa's performance is amazing, and he really gets to shine as the Doctor, and Millie Gibson really gets to shine as Ruby Sunday. It's a really good episode for those two, and this is what I love about this era. You have these really amazing episodes in the rough like this one that really stand out. Of course, I think my only negative about this looking back is the inclusion of Villengard, or Villengard as you want to say it. Their inclusion kind of sours this episode looking back at it, because of course we also see them in a future episode, and unfortunately they're actually Ncuti Gatwa's only recurring villain really. And then we have 73 Yards, the 4th episode of the first series, and Ncuti Gatwa really isn't in this episode at all, and it's really unfortunate because of course there really aren't many episodes in this series, and now of course we know that there just really weren't many episodes in Ncuti Gatwa's era at all, so to have this many episodes without Ncuti Gatwa as the focus is kind of sad looking back at it, but 73 Yards is everything everybody says. It's a great episode. Millie Gibson as Ruby Sunday here is just amazing, and looking back I think I have been too harsh on the characterization of Ruby Sunday because she really gets to shine in these episodes. Dawson Bubble of course course, is then the second episode where the Doctor really doesn't feature much at all, which again, like I've already said, is very disappointing now looking back at it, that there are this many Doctor Light episodes in such a short era for such an amazing Doctor. But when he's on screen, when he gets to shine, when he has that moment where he confronts this disgusting racist, it's amazing. His acting is superb, and Murray Gold, who has been a huge standout of this era, was really on point here. The Doctor's theme, Ncuti Gatwa's whole 15th Doctor theme, is absolutely beautiful, and the darkness to it in this episode is just amazing. I really love when Ncuti Gatwa actually gets a proper chance to shine, and this was one of those moments. The last 5-10 minutes of this episode are so very strong. Rogue is then the next episode of this series, which Rogue, I think, is an okay episode. I don't think it's amazing, I don't think it's the best. What I do appreciate about this episode, though, is that we actually get an alien, we get an actual proper monster. Up until this point, bar the slug creatures of the Dot and Bubble episode and the bogey monster, we haven't really had aliens or monsters or anything in this series, and I really love that we get to see actual aliens and monsters in, you know, the Aliens and Monsters show. Again, looking back at it, of course, the inclusion of the character of Road, played by Jonathan Groff, again, I don't mind this character. Very much does feel just like a Captain Jack Harkness replacement because you can't have John Barrowman in the show anymore, so I don't particularly like that, and the fact that then we have this whole setup of him sacrificing himself, and, you know, it's meant to be the Doctor's going to go find him, and of course that's never going to happen anymore. We even get him in one of the most recent episodes, and it's like, you know, Doctor, find me, and we know that's never happening now. We know that the Doctor won't go and find Rogue, and that's the issue with looking back at a lot of these episodes, is they set up things, they promise things that we're now never going to get a conclusion to because Ncuti Gatwa's era has been cut short. And then that directly leads us into The Legend of Ruby Sunday and The Empire of Death. These are the two Sutekh episodes, and as much as this is controversial, I adore these two episodes. I adore The Legend of Ruby Sunday. I think it's such a great finale and has such a great cliffhanger. I love the Doctor's reaction. I love Ncuti Gatwa's acting here when he finds out about Sutekh. I think it's amazing. Of course, there are definitely flaws with the whole Sutekh clinging onto the TARDIS thing, which, looking back, is so goofy, but I genuinely like these episodes. They very feel much like old Doctor Who to me. They've got this vibe to it, I do like it. Of course, they've got their flaws, like, you know, watching an old episode of Doctor Who on, like, this tablet console. I don't like that. I think that's bad. And what I also think is bad is this whole Ruby Sunday mystery that, of course, now looking back, went nowhere because, you know, it was leading nowhere. This whole thing about Ruby Sunday's mum is just a huge nothing burger, and that's really unfortunate. And, of course, this finale is plagued with controversy and people hate it, and it's really unfortunate because this is Ncuti Gatwa's first finale, and also, weirdly, it's one of his last finales. And look, as much as I like these episodes, not many people do. They're not universally liked. A lot of people have lots of disagreements about these episodes, and ultimately Season 1 is a very controversial series and plagued with issues and things that never get solved, or things that are promised to get solved but never do. Ncuti Gatwa and Millie Gibson, respectively in their roles, are amazing in these episodes, but unfortunately Season 1 left a lot to be desired, and on my official ranking of each of these episodes, they are very low down. We then get Joy to the World, and God, this is one of the worst episodes, if not the worst episode of Ncuti Gatwa's era, and one of the worst episodes of the entire show. I hate it. Again, Murray Gold is on point. We hear the Doctor's theme. That's beautiful. The music really hits. Ncuti Gatwa is the Doctor, and this whole concept of the Time Hotel is great. I love it. The character of Joy is not joyous whatsoever. She floats off into the sky like really bad CGI, explodes into a star, and then ultimately consumes her mother. It's so weird. I don't like it whatsoever. I really hate Joy to the World. I've got a full video going over why I don't like it. It's one of the worst episodes of the show. Joy, the titular character, gets sidelined. It's not good whatsoever. It's just bad. Very, very bad. I don't want to dwell about this episode too long on why I hate it. I've made a whole video on that which you can watch currently on the channel. But this is a very, very weak point of the era and had me very concerned going into Series 2. But ultimately, a review of Series 1 and this episode, what I liked is that, yeah, the Pantheon is still this big, overwhelming threat. We've got Sutekh, somebody who is part of the Pantheon. We get to hear more about the Pantheon, like the Trickster being involved. I really like that. I really like how they flesh out the Pantheon during these episodes, during Series 1. I really like that. Going into Season 2, Ncuti Gatwa's second and last series, The Robot Revolution. Robot Revolution, what have I got to say about it? It's fine. It's solid, it's okay, it's not an offensive episode, it's not a bad episode, but it's not a great episode at the same time. The character of Belinda's great, I really love the interaction she has with Ncuti Gatwa, they are on fire in this episode, I really love how she pushes back, it's great, I love how they set her up as wanting to go home, again, looking back at that, really doesn't kind of work. So of course, the actress who plays Belinda had already been in the show, which is kind of set up as a mystery, but a mystery that never gets revisited. We don't have an answer to it whatsoever. I don't like it at all, I don't like that at all now looking back at it, that we don't have an answer to that. I don't like that whatsoever. I also don't like the conclusion of this episode, how Al, who people think is AI, but no, it's actually Al, gets vacuumed up because he gets turned into a sperm and an egg. That's a little bit weird. In the next two episodes, Lux and The Well, Doctor Who was on fire during these two episodes, and so was Ncuti Gatwa. In the Lux, we get a brand new character, Mr. Ring-a-Ding, who's also part of the Pantheon, Lux Imperator. He's the god of light. And this is amazing visuals, the animation is great, we have some amazing callbacks and music from Murray Gold, some breaking the fourth wall type stuff going on, which again, that's something I really don't like about this era, is the constant fourth wall breaks that never get a fucking answer anymore. So, you know, that could have been excused a little bit ago, not anymore, because we don't have an actual answer to it. But Lux is an amazing episode, Ncuti Gatwa is absolutely on fire, Belinda's characterization is still intact by this episode, it's great. I love the character of Lux Imperator, and I love the whole Pantheon and this Giggle that they will do. I do love that at this point it very much felt like we knew where we were going. There was a direction with the Pantheon, and I loved where it was leading and heading. And then we reached The Well, which is actually a sequel to the episode Midnight from the 10th Doctor, one of the best episodes of the entire modern era, and The Well, it's not as good as Midnight, but it's absolutely fucking fantastic. It's a great episode. Ncuti Gatwa's performance is chilling, this Midnight entity being back and leaving it on type of like a cliffhanger, but not really. Love this episode. Don't have much really else to say because I've already made a couple of videos on this. It's an amazing episode. These two episodes are really great back to back, and they are some of Ncuti Gatwa's best episodes. They are actually the two best episodes, in my opinion, of his era. And honestly, I thought this was the beginning of Ncuti Gatwa's era, really getting into it, right? Really knowing where it was going, that we were going to get some really interesting stuff with Ncuti Gatwa over the next couple of series, that, you know, that he was really going to be fleshed out as the Doctor with these amazing stories. But unfortunately, that wasn't to be. We have Lucky Day, which is another Dr. Light episode, which is just shocking now looking back at it. Lucky Day is a fine episode. We get introduced to Conrad, and yeah, Conrad is, of course, in the finale as well. I like this episode. I think it's a fine episode. Unfortunately, it's another Dr. Light, though, which, looking back, has kind of left a really bad, sour taste in my mouth, because we just didn't get much time with this Doctor whatsoever. We do get an absolutely amazing Ncuti Gatwa scene with Conrad right at the end of the episode, where he threatens Conrad. That's amazing. That's really great. And then Story of the Engine, another just amazing episode. I don't think it's the best of his era, I think it's great. I just think it's a good, solid episode all around. We also get the Return of the Fugitive Doctor, which, again, ultimately goes nowhere. There's just a lot that goes nowhere, but I do love this episode. I love Ncuti Gatwa as this. He really gets a chance to be the Doctor here. It really feels like he is the Doctor. He gives this amazing, wonderful speech at the end with some amazing music. Some people might say it's a bit fan wanky, but there are scenes around of Doctor Who playing. It's great. It really works. I do really love the story in the engine. Again, I thought this era was really going somewhere. Then we have the Interstellar Song Contest, oh no way, which introduces Susan Foreman, the Doctor's granddaughter, after a whole 2 seasons of build-up. Oh my god, I can't wait to see where that goes. It goes nowhere. It gets completely forgotten about. In the final episode, she's not mentioned once. It's fucking fantastic. I think that's the issue now looking back after the finale. Of course, I did a huge review on the finale yesterday. Of course, we've got lots of questions that are unanswered. We find out about the Rani in this episode. That leads to nowhere. It was a 2-year build-up, and the Rani gets eaten by a giant Omega, which gets set up in the finale. He's there for 2 minutes, then gets lasered in the face and disappears. We set up with Rogue coming back, and the possibility of the Doctor going to find Rogue. That goes nowhere now because Ncuti Gatwa has regenerated. Susan Foreman has been teased for 2 seasons. That goes nowhere now. It literally went zero. Something can be said about the Pantheon. I felt like we were on this really strong verge of the Pantheon. We had the Trickster, we had Sutek, we had the Toymaker, we had Lux, we had all of these gods, and we were introduced to the God of Wishes, who was his child, and the child goes with Ruby Sunday's family, and that makes a lot of sense. But where does the Pantheon stand now? Are we going to continue this? Are we going to leave it there? Are we continuing Rogue? Are we continuing with this Susan Foreman stuff? I have no idea where we stand currently. The issue with Ncuti Gatwa's era is there was a lot of promises, there was lots of ideas, that have unfortunately gone nowhere, including Susan. Even Ruby's story went nowhere. Belinda's kind of got thrown right at the end. No Susan, no Rogue. It feels very half-arsed, including the fact that Shutigawa never got to face a Dalek, Cyberman, or the Master. Didn't have to face all three, didn't even have to face two of them, just could have faced one of the big three, and I would have been happy. It feels like he's just didn't get the full treatment of being a doctor. So, well, a huge issue with this era were the monsters. A lot of Shutigatwa's actual villains were just people, and that's devastating for him. He said in an article once that he just wanted to face a Dalek, and he didn't even get to do that. And it very much feels like he got the short end of the stick. He was introduced to the show via David Tennant, and his exit is now overwhelmed by Billie Piper. It's unfortunate. There was lots of promises with this era, lots of ideas, lots of great ideas, lots of stories that ultimately have really gone nowhere. I have lots of questions after the ending of Shutigatwa's run about the Pantheon, about Rogue, about Susan, how they handled Belinda's characterization and how she just wasn't the same character by the end. Millie Gibson's characterization of Ruby Sunday, and how her story about her mother really didn't go anywhere, and then they just kind of left her there at the end of the finale, and nothing really came of it. It was setting up this character, the boss, which they also did in the finale. Where does that stand? Are we going to continue that with the next Doctor? Is that next Doctor Billie Piper? We have no idea. This era, unfortunately, is now an absolute mess because all these questions, all these setups have gone nowhere. And to me, it's very unfortunate. Shutigatwa was an amazing Doctor. He's an amazing actor. He was surrounded by amazing actresses and actors, like Millie Gibson as Ruby Sunday. She was fantastic. We had great companions like Belinda. She was amazing at the start of the series. Then her characterization trailed off. We had great plot threads like the Pantheon, which went nowhere. Rogue, which has gone absolutely nowhere. The idea of Susan and the Doctor returning and reuniting finally has gone absolutely nowhere. Even Rogue, a character that I'm not too fond of, but you know, they set this story up, is now ultimately going nowhere, because we will never get Shutigatwa's Doctor and Rogue reuniting. Some people have been saying, you know, this isn't the first Doctor who's had this kind of treatment, like Christopher Eccleston, right? Gone too soon. But at least with him, I feel like they gave him a story. They gave him something to latch onto. With Shutigatwa now looking back, he really didn't have much. Like, we didn't really get to know this character. All these plot threads and stories have kind of been now thrown away, it almost feels like. And look, I hope they do continue like the Pantheon and the Boss, and maybe even Rogue, but it just won't feel the same, because these are all Shutigatwa's stories. And it's unfortunate. Ultimately as well, this is my ranking of the episodes if you are interested, from best to worst. I was honestly really starting to like this era. I loved Suta. I love the idea of the Pantheon. Susan returning. I love where they were taking it, and ultimately a lot of it went nowhere. This idea of the Rani went nowhere. She was eaten by a giant CGI version of Omega. And that tells you basically everything you need to know about the wasted potential of Shutigatwa's era. And it's unfortunate because he's an amazing actor who was an amazing Doctor who could have just been so much more. Everybody watching, what's your view of this era? Please feel free to comment down below. I really hope you have enjoyed this era. I hope you've enjoyed the episodes that I haven't. I really do hope you got something out of this era that I didn't. And if you didn't, that's completely fine as well. Those are your opinions. But please feel free to comment down below. But I've been your host Samuel, and I'll catch you in the next Doctor Who video. Goodbye.